Welcome to the Grace Fellowship Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us. This is a weekly podcast that we put out for our people so that they know what's going on around Grace Fellowship, as well as talk about pertinent issues that are happening in our culture, how to think about these issues as we all grow together. If you're not from Grace Fellowship, we're happy that you're joining us and hope you enjoy this podcast. Well, hey, Grace Fellowship. This is our new Grace Fellowship podcast with myself and David and Carlton. And we got this idea from our pastoral intern, or not pastoral intern, our intern and our pastoral assistant. These guys have started doing a podcast with their young adults, and they said it might be good for us to do the same thing, to keep the congregation in sync and kind of let them know what's going on and just kind of be a weekly update and into what's happening around the office. So, first of all, let's talk about these two guys, Carlton, David. We've got two young guys on staff with us. Jacob, who was an intern, now he's pastoral assistant, and Jackson, who many of you may not know, Jackson Henry, is our intern for the summer. And these guys have been a tremendous blessing. You guys want to share about these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I could just echo that, a blessing. I mean, it's great to have young, new ideas coming into the office, challenges, new set of eyes, and then also just a zeal for doing life and doing ministry and tons of questions, which stirs up a lot for us old guys, especially the oldest in the room, that, after you've been doing something for a long time, you just do it that way because you've always done it. And so getting new eyes involved, they're super talented at what they do, and we're blessed to have them.
Man, they are, and they love the Lord, and that's what's been really cool for me to watch is seeing Jacob for a year now, a year and a half, and watching him interact with people, disciple people, love people, taking books off my shelf, and always reading everything. He's getting his hands on whatever he can to learn more about not just knowledge, but learn more about the Lord and how to love people. Jackson, getting to know him a little bit this summer, and that's been a lot of fun. He's a brilliant guy, had a lot of good ideas. It's fun to watch him interact with us and jump in and just be a part of the team. It's been really good. Yeah,
you mentioned Jacob in his book. I don't want to call it a fetish, but I mean it's something weird. He loves books.
That'll be edited out.
Jacob loves books, and no book is safe around him. But these guys have been wonderful. And they have, to echo what Carl said, been very challenging. But they've also been taking, a load of the work off of us. So we get to, honestly, like I look at our calendars now, and it's more filled up with meetings with people and getting to do the work of ministry rather than all the administrative tasks. And really appreciate these guys doing this. Yeah, another thing that's just happened is we have hired Abigail Workman. So we've been without a worship leader for quite some time, and we've got a great team, as everybody's seen up on stage still. With
really blessed.
Yeah, really blessed with a great team, but nobody really to lead that team, to prepare every week and do all that. So, Carlton, why don't you tell us a little bit about Abigail Workman, who she is, and the work she's going to be doing for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the church knows her maybe better as Abigail Acker, and she's Abigail Acker Workman. Mm-hmm. And so Abigail is just a super blessing in the fact that she grew up here, a little girl, all the way through, and so she understands this place. She knows it inside and out. It's home to her. She has a deep passion and love for what we do here at Grace Fellowship. She has great theology because her mom and dad have poured just tons of hours into her life. Her mom specifically doesn't get probably enough credit for some of that, but shout out to Debbie. She homeschooled Abigail from early on, like in third grade or so, fourth grade. And all through the year, she was training her in, obviously, school subjects, but also in how to pursue the Lord and showing her a pattern of what a godly woman's life looks like. And Abigail took that and has gone to the next level. If you know her, she is passionate about the Lord. She's passionate about worship. She has a degree in music from Samford. Hopefully I won't get these things wrong. She also has a master's degree She participates in Alabama Symphony Orchestra. We know we've been blessed for years with her piano skills, but not only piano, but harp. And she kind of sees music as an artist. She writes her own music, arranges her own music. So she brings this heart and wealth of training and a heart for passion for music, and then marries that with the theology of Grace Fellowship and years of steeping in these truths with her parents, and then at church too. So we're just blessed to have her. Yeah. She'll be she's not the worship director, so what she is kind of the music, the worship coordinator.
Okay.
So what she's doing is coordinating all the pieces, assigning roles within the service, choosing music to go along with the theme of the service that we're doing. Yeah. Putting together the service would be a good way to put it. So she's involved with us on Tuesdays at Sermon Collaboration. She's involved with emailing and communicate with the team. She's involved with the pastors, hearing from them what their direction for worship publicly is. And she just coordinates and brings all those things together.
That's awesome. And anybody who's done that knows that's quite a job, quite a task and role. And but they still live in Birmingham.
Still live in Birmingham.
Yeah, still in Birmingham.
Still members at Redeemer. We're not taking her away from her new home, but we're just using her and her skills as we can. So,
love that.
I don't know Abigail. I just know her through hearing conversation. Other people talk about her. But when we met with her the other day, something that got me excited about her in this role was her talking about her soul being fed by helping the body worship. And that was something really encouraging and exciting for me to think about, sitting in the congregation with the body as somebody who loves this so much, is putting so much work into it and helping us worship well.
Absolutely.
It's exciting.
That's awesome. Couple other things going around Grace Fellowship right now is we have several of our students at FCA camp. So that's going on right now. They're coming back home
Friday night.
Yep. Sweet.
Can't wait to get Lily back.
So
they're having a blast.
That's great. Ryan Limbaugh is part of leading that whole effort. And so if you're praying, you can pray for them. Another thing is, David, you just turned 33.
33. That's
33,
right.
baby.
Yep, Sunday.
The age of perfection.
According to Aaron Acker.
Yeah.
Definitely. I hope it's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not starting out too well.
We just celebrated David's birthday today at Taiwan On. That was his pick.
I love that place.
It is very, very good. Shout out to Taiwan On.
There you go.
They're advertising there for now this podcast.
That's right.
Maybe we'll get free food every day.
We'll just go tell them next time we're there. But another one of the things that we wanted to do during this podcast time is talk about issues that are going on in our culture. And huge issue going on right now in our culture is the Roe versus Wade has been overturned. That case from 1970, Carlton.
1973.
1973. So, long time, almost 50 years of Roe versus Wade. And this has made the access to abortion a constitutional right for all American from the federal government. And but now it being repealed here's what we know. It being repealed has caused all kinds of uproar in our society. And and basically it's like, hey, abortion is out now, and no more babies will be aborted. But that's not all very true, right?
Right.
So, Carlton, why don't you tell us a couple things? I'm going to ask you some specific questions. One, what actually, in a super summary, what actually did this removal of this case do? And secondly, what about all of these trends going on, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, young people? I've actually had young people in our church ask me, well, are women who accidentally get pregnant or have problems with their pregnancy, are they not going to have access to good health care? Because that's what I'm hearing. They're going to be in trouble now.
Yeah.
So talk about those two things if you can.
Yeah. So I think it might be helpful to super summary here, but a quick lesson in what's the Supreme Court's job? The Supreme Court is a balls and strikes entity. By that I just mean William Rehnquist kind of used that for the first. He was a Chief Justice a long time ago, or not that long ago, but longer than maybe some of you have been alive ago. And so what he said was, our job is not to make the rules. Our job is to abide by the rules, and we call balls and strikes. So the Constitution is the rule, and everything that's done in the legislatures of the state and the federal It may be questioned, challenged in court, and it goes up the process of the first court, then the appeals, and then it may go all the way to the Supreme Court. And when it does, what the Supreme Court does is not decide if this is a good idea, if this is a good piece of legislation, if it helps a lot of people. Their job is to say, does the Constitution of the United States say this is the role of the federal government or not? And if not, then that means it goes back to the state. So what we have in Roe Wade was they took a right that should have been policed, so to speak, and legislated at state level and brought it up to the federal level and said, we made the decision. It's legal in all the land. And they put together language that sounded more like, and this is liberal scholars and conservative scholars alike say this, it sounds more like legislation. If you read Justice White when he wrote the original ruling, he's legislating. He's putting in all these things of like, well, if it's in this case, then it'll be this. And if it's this test needs to be applied as far as what trimester we're in. And that's not, as anybody with honesty would say, that's not their job.
That's out of bounds.
That's out of bounds. And so what this court did is in Dobbs versus Mississippi, or Women's Center in Jackson, what this case did was the law in Mississippi had been passed 15 weeks and on. You could not have an abortion. And that was challenged, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court did was not only uphold the Dobbs law in Mississippi, the law that Mississippi had in the Dobbs case, but it went back and said Roe versus Wade was decided wrongly. And we now throw it out, and Casey versus Planned Parenthood of 1992, which was built on Roe Wade also, another piece of legislation written by the court. They said both of those cases are vacated. So they walked away from where we had been in what's known as precedent. And that alarms people. Like, oh, the court changed something that's an enumerated right. They didn't. They didn't change that. What they did is said the court previously made an error. And so what this case does simply is vacates that old decision. It walks away from it, and it says now the thing is the Constitution has given this to the states. And so every state, all 50, have to make their own rules, and it's a rule for that state. So in the state of Alabama and many other states, we had in 2019 passed a legislation here then signed into law what's known as a trigger law. So as long as Roe v. Wade was in effect, the law didn't do anything.
Right.
But as soon as Roe v. Wade was removed and Casey versus Planned Parenthood was removed, this 2019 law immediately went into effect. And what it says is that abortion, selecting to have an abortion is not an option. Just because of a hard case or a hard issue, it's not an option. Unless the life of the mother is at risk, in the state of Alabama, as I understand it, abortion's not an option. But in what could be a risk to a mother, that's determined by 2 medical doctors. And so it's signed off on. And so things like ectopic pregnancy, we've heard a lot about that, toxic wound, and babies that have passed already and haven't been birthed. Right. They're just there. All of that is legal. That is what's called a medical abortion, not an abortion, not an elective abortion. Right. So what the law does is says no elective abortion, but we allow for medical abortion. And so the life of mothers is not at risk under the Alabama law, and health care has not been pulled away, but life has been protected and preserved. And so that's kind of a nutshell of what
So it seems like there's a lot of sensationalism right now where people are just screaming and hollering and saying a bunch of wrong things, and people believe wrong things. You know, it's very easy to believe wrong things, especially when you see them on social media. I was on social media last night, and Instagram, this guy showed me how to cook bacon, where all the bacon gets done at the same time. You just pour a little bit of water in there, and it gets done at the same time. So this morning, I cook bacon every morning. I poured some water in there, and it's the worst I've ever cooked bacon. Absolutely fell on its face. So I'm very unappreciative of that info. It was bad info. Bad info. And so it came off Instagram. What do you expect, I guess? But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of misinformation, a lot of sensationalism. But that's one reason we want to have this podcast is so that we can hear from pastors who we trust, who've looked into these issues and get these things right. So So get this right. Let me just make sure we're not leaving anything on the table here. If someone wants an abortion, they can still drive up to New York State and get an abortion.
As a matter of fact, there are already states that are advertising we're open for business in the abortion industry, and we'll have packages for you to travel to our state. There are companies that are saying we will cover this under our company benefits. Especially some, I don't want to mention names, but some national companies have already come out and said, if you're an employee and you want an abortion and you live in Alabama and they won't let you have it, we'll actually pay for you to travel to a state where it's legal.
Wow.
The court has already decided that interstate commerce means that people can travel anywhere they want to go. You cannot restrict that. So the state of Alabama,
And they're calling it abortion tourism.
That's exactly right. It's a new
tour the
industry.
country to find the abortion clinic you need.
Yeah, exactly. So it is not true if somebody tells you that if someone leaves the state of Alabama and goes to a more permissive state where they can get an abortion, has an abortion, and they come home, they will not be prosecuted as a criminal. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, the law doesn't prosecute mothers. The law prosecutes providers. Mm. So if a doctor provides elective abortions illegally in the state of Alabama, they will be accountable to the law, not the poor mother who's in a very difficult situation and went to the doctor and the doctor offered her this service. She's not done that. And there's reasons for that. This is not, we should never take a triumphalist approach where everything's now right because in Alabama we're not going to have abortion, so we're good. There's a lot of reasons why people think abortion is the only way out. And what we need to be about compassionately and empathetically is how do we help alleviate those issues? How do we get in there? Not that we aren't, but how do we dig in even more now to care for those who are in need, facing these really difficult situations, counsel them, love them, and provide a way that is God-honoring for them.
That's good. And the reason I bring that up about the other states is just to, again, retract some misinformation about, now you can't get an abortion anywhere in the U.S., which is totally ridiculous. But we're not happy that you can still get them in other states, right? We don't like babies being killed or people being killed.
As Ben Shapiro says, from their lips to God's ears, I wish we'd have, what it would take to do that is what's known as a right to life amendment to the Constitution. But here I want to warn our politically engaged members of this, and you may be hearing maybe you don't sit where your pastor's doing this issue, and we'd love to hear from you and talk with you, first of all. But if you don't sit where we are and you hear a candidate saying, if you elect me to go to Washington, we're going to pass a law that will legalize abortion all the way across the 50 states. The truth of the matter is that on either side of this issue, what the court has said is if you pass a federal law on abortion, it will be thrown out. Mm-hmm. There can be no federal legislation. Mm-hmm. What it takes to change is to change the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So if you want abortion legal in all 50 states, what the court has said is you'll have to go through the legislative process. You'll have to get the majority, 2/3 of the states on board with your amendment. It'll have to come to Constitution. It'll go all the way through the amendment process. And that's the route to change. You change the Constitution. You basically add to the Constitution. And sadly, but legally, truthfully, to have a anti-abortion legislation, that's the same thing that's going to have to happen. They'll amend the Constitution, add to it, So enumerate a right is what that means. And so it's a dead issue politically, but it's going to be used politically a lot over the coming years, as it has been in the past.
Right. So it's definitely been used. And I heard you speak on that this week. Mm-hmm. One other thing that I've seen going around, and I know we've talked before that you saw, David, as well, is what are viable reasons we believe as Christians for abortions? One of the things we've heard this past week, even a woman on CNN and other places is talking about, kids with Down syndrome and how tough it is to have a kid with Downs and how much of a drain it is on the family. And it's almost like she is saying that having a child like that, it would be better off if that child wasn't ever born. And that's really tough, David. I know you have, you deal with mentally handicapped in your family. I have a mentally handicapped person in my family. And so we've seen the drain that it is, but if you'll speak to, David, what are some of these tough issues that we see? positive test before the baby's born about Downs? Is that a good reason to abort the child, or rape or incest? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so that's something that we never took part in the where you can do like the 4D scans and see that.
I don't think we did either.
You can also do the genetic testing and see if there are any issues.
Yeah.
A lot of people do those, and that's okay. And it can help you be prepared if there's an issue. Be educated, know what to do, find some resources to help you out. But as Bible believing Christians, like, we see all of life at conception as an image bearer of God and something that has sanctity, and that we are to protect. And that's what we've been praising God about with this decision, which you keep hearing in the people praising God for this decision keep saying also there's still a lot of work to be done. And that is huge. That's what Carlton was saying. We have to keep pressing in on all these issues: adoption, foster care, supporting moms who are in tough situations, teaching dads how to be dads. There's so many things that we as the church can do, so we keep pressing into those. But when it comes to a viable reason for an abortion, I don't believe we have the right to make that call on this side. If we believe God is the giver of life, that He's sovereign, does that mean everything's going to be okay? No. Like, we still live in a fallen world, and we deal with very difficult, hard situations all around us. And we depend on the grace of the Lord, the mercy of the Lord to help us through, the body of believers to help us, good counsel, relationships to help us through. My wife and I, Lydia and I, we went through a miscarriage before Bennett was born. And I wouldn't want anybody to have to walk through that. And to see the crushing effect that had on my wife, different on me. I tell dads a lot of times, like, that it doesn't become real for you until you actually hold the child, the pregnancy, even though you can feel the kicks and everything. We see all these situations. We all have hard situations that we've been through. And as believers, we understand that God uses those to help love and comfort the body, to put His glory on display through the backdrop of darkness. But you mentioned my uncle. My uncle has special needs, and I just grew up with knowing that was my uncle. That's Keith, and he's 6'5", and he can't use a microwave, but he can remember meeting somebody 30 years before, where they were. May not remember their name, but he'll see them across the room and say, "I remember you from this time." So it's just amazing, the complexity of the situation. But if you were to tell me his life is not as valuable as somebody that doesn't have any mental handicap, it'd be very hard for me not to want to just rip your head off, because the blessing he has been to every person that's ever met him. You can't put a number or a value on his life other than a child of God. He is a blessing to everyone, and he's still living. My grandmother and grandfather have passed away. My mom is the only living one on his side of the family, and he still struggles with his mental handicap, but we praise God for his life. I just grew up knowing that I was blessed by him, and you see just a sweet, tender love from him that I don't know. It's just very special and unique. So.
Well, and I would say, as somebody, on this issue, it's very hard. Both mentally handicapped people in our family, physically handicapped, and would echo exactly what David said. But I would also say, as someone who preached his daughter's own funeral, nobody can tell me that Sophie's life was meaningless. I mean, it transformed. She transformed me. She transformed Amy. She transformed Hannah Grace and Noah, who were young at that time. Preaching her funeral changed the way I think about life and death. I mean, I would just say that it is the most bleak situation is in the hands of a good
So
and
good.
glorious God
right.
who will use it for his good, for his glory and our good ultimately. So if you're in that situation, I want to just open Grace Fellowship up to you. Like we want to be a servant to you. We have also two other things I want to say quickly. Hope Women's Clinic here in Anniston is a crisis pregnancy center in Anniston. It's a ministry we support. And then secondly, Dr. Johansson, who's a member of our church, has a great practice, an obstetrician practice, and I would encourage you to go there. So thanks for listening. We're super excited about what all this could lead to, these kinds of discussions. So we're looking forward to next week when we do another topic, but thanks for hanging in there with us on this one.